We will start from verse 161 of Surah Al-Baqarah. It says that those who disbelieved and died while they were disbelievers, upon them is the curse of Allah, the angels, and all people. If you remember in verse 159, Allah cursed those who concealed the clear proofs, who are the Jews we talked about earlier. Today, in verse 161, it curses the dead, meaning we skipped 60, meaning 159, 60, and 61. So today, the matter is a bit different. How is it different? In that the curse combines Allah, the angels, and the people. It says again that those who disbelieved and died while they were disbelievers, upon them is the curse of Allah, the angels, and all the people. The truth is, of course, I want to absolve the divine self from cursing, because there is a difference between two very important things. There is a difference between Allah and His words, as we have said many times before. Allah is absolute. Allah is not bound by time, place, or event. However, the words of Allah are relative. Why? Because they are tied to specific times, places, and events. So, there is a big difference between Allah and His words. So, what is the nation? To get out of this, because the words of Allah express Allah, meaning ultimately, in my personal opinion, Allah addressed humans in a human language. If He had addressed them in a divine language, they would not have understood anything. Here, the threats of punishment, torment, and curses, and all of that, are completely distant from the essence of the Supreme Being of Allah Himself, but it is to bring the concept closer to humans, that Allah is not pleased with their actions, not pleased with their disbelief. But Allah cannot be equated with angels and humans in cursing, because cursing is fundamentally a flaw in humans. Meaning, any person who curses another person is inherently flawed in all cases, because there are other reasons besides cursing, killing, insulting, and so on. There are many other means in any case. But of course, the question here in the verse is about who is speaking about Allah in the verse. Why? Because it says that those who disbelieve, and they are disbelievers, upon them is the curse of Allah. His curse is from Allah. Well, it could have said, upon them is my curse. It could have said, fear them and fear me, I will forgive them, and I am the oft-forgiving, most merciful. But the curse of Allah here means that someone is speaking about Allah. The question is, who is it? Okay, let's move on to verse 162, where it says they will abide therein. Are they cursed? Abiding therein, the punishment will not be lightened for them, nor will they be reprieved. The truth here is that we must ask the question. In verse 162, we should use the concept of opposition mentioned in the principles, meaning the principles of jurisprudence. This concept of opposition means that when the Quran says the punishment will not be lightened for them, we must immediately ask whether there are others for whom the punishment is lightened or not. Are there others who are reprieved or not? And if there are others for whom the punishment is lightened, how is it lightened? For example, are they taken from the lowest depths of the fire and placed above, for instance? This is a question you must ask yourself, as it says here. They will abide therein forever. The punishment will not be lightened for them, nor will they be reprieved. Okay, excellent. Are there other groups for whom the punishment is lightened and who are reprieved? That's the question. Verse 163 says, and your God is one God. There is no deity except Him, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Truly, here, the discussion also uses the third person pronoun except Him, meaning God. We can compare this with other verses and other situations, like when it says, "And we did not send any messenger before you except that we revealed to him that there is no deity except me, so worship me." This is in the prophets 25. Very well. It means God is saying, I am the only deity. Here, he is speaking about himself. So when it says except him, who is speaking about him? In verse 163, and your God is one God. And your God is one God. Wow. There is no deity except him, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Who is the speaker here? Okay, 164. It says that in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of night and day, and the ships that sail in the sea with what benefits people, and what God has sent down from the sky of water, giving life thereby to the earth after its lifelessness, and dispersing therein every kind of creature, and the directing of the winds and the clouds controlled between the sky and the earth are signs for people who use reason. The reason for its revelation is that Quraysh, the disbelievers of Quraysh, were astonished by verse 163 that we have settled on, and your God is one God. They said, God, meaning one deity, will suffice for all of us, will suffice for all people, will satisfy all people. So the verse was revealed, and they said, if it suffices for all people, then let Muhammad bring us a sign. Then verse 164 was revealed. Indeed, in the creation of the heavens and the earth, and the alternation of the night and the day, and the ships that sail in the sea with that which benefits people. This was the reason for its revelation. Here, too, the discussion is about God. In verse 164, God is not the speaker. Why? Because it says, and what God has sent down. It could have said, and what I have sent down. When God speaks about himself, he speaks about himself unless there is something we do not comprehend, meaning something I do not know. Sometimes God speaks about himself using I and other times using he. In verse 164, the speaker about God uses the third person pronoun. Okay. Verse 165 says, and among the people are those who take other than God as equals, loving them, as they should love God. But those who believe are stronger in love for God. If only the wrongdoers could see, when they see the punishment, that all power belongs to God and that God is severe in punishment. Here, again, it mentions that among the people are those who take others, besides God. The address would have been, and among the people are those who take others besides me, as it was said, so fear them and fear me, indeed I. So here, also, there are those who speak about God, who is in verse 165. In truth, I am trying to think out loud with you because it is important for us to reach correct insights that correct our understanding of the Quran. The second point. Who are those who have wronged? Who are those who have wronged? I mean, right now, those who take others as equals to God are always the disbelievers, without a doubt. Those who make equals to God are disbelievers. But here it says, and among the people are those who take others as equals to God, loving them as they should love God. Is that clear? Okay. And those who believe are stronger in love for God, which is also very good. Okay. And if those who have wronged could see, are those who have taken others as equals to God the same ones who have wronged? So, who did they wrong then? Did they wrong themselves, or what? We want to know. Anyway, because injustice comes from above, so by taking others as equals to God, did they wrong themselves? Does someone who disbelieves in God and takes others as equals to him become merely unjust? Verse 166 says, when those who are followed disown those who followed them, and they see the punishment, and all ties between them are cut off. Let me quickly mention what Ibn Kathir said about this verse. The angels say, "We disown ourselves before you, O God, from what they used to worship us for." There was a group of people who worshipped the angels. Glory be to you, you are our protector, not them. Rather, they used to worship the jinn. And the jinn also disowned them and distanced themselves from the people who used to, meaning both the angels and the jinn disowned this group of people who worshipped and followed them. In fact, this is mentioned in Ibn Kathir in the 6th and 7th lines of the interpretation of Al-Amin 66. When did this actually happen? I mean, the jinn and the angels, and this group of people who follow the angels and the jinn instead of God, when did this happen? I mean, when did it occur? When did they stand, and these said, and those disowned? Because also in verse 167, it continues and says, those who followed, the people who are in trouble, those who are the angels and the jinn, disown them. What do they say? They say, and those who followed said, if only we had a return to the world, we would disown them, disown the angels and the jinn, as they have disowned us. Thus, God shows them. God shows them their deeds as regrets upon them, and they will not be coming out of the fire. When did all this happen, especially since the day of resurrection has not yet occurred? Meaning, these disowned those, and those said if we had a return to the world again, we would have disowned them as they disowned us. When did this happen? Especially since the day of judgment has not yet come, meaning no one has stood before God for all this scenario to happen. Therefore, I don't understand. Is this just a depiction of what will happen on the day of judgment? But what caught my attention is that it says, and those who followed said, if only we had a return, meaning they said, that's it. And they regretted their stance, meaning when did this happen? That's the point. In fact, in verse 167, the talk about God is in the third person as well. Why? Because it says, thus God shows them. It could have been, if God himself were speaking, thus I show them. In 168, it says, O you who? 60 says, O prophet. Sorry, O people, ye of what is on earth lawful and good. Come here, so we can understand a bit. We were saying that there are people who follow the angels and the devils, then they stood before God, and these disowned those, and those said, if only we had a return or a chance in the world, we would disown them as they disowned us. Suddenly, we moved into the topic of food. O people, eat of what is on earth lawful and good. What is the connection between this and what came before? What is the relationship between 168 and 167? That's a question, then pay attention. 67, this word, then. Pay attention. The second part of verse 168 says, and do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy. What is the connection between the first part of the verse and the second? Now it says, O people, eat of what is on earth lawful and good. This is a command from God to eat what is lawful and good on earth. What is the connection with the footsteps of Satan? And do not follow the footsteps of Satan. Indeed, he is to you a clear enemy. What is the connection between the parts? What is present in the footsteps of Satan related to lawful and good eating? That's the question. So, this is the issue. Okay, 169, what? Does it say about the relationship with Satan? It says, he only commands you to evil and immorality and to say about God what you do not know. The truth that concerns me here is that the command is from God. Satan does not command, Satan whispers, and there's a very big difference between whispering and commanding. In fact, We do not know what he means, but he orders you to do evil. The command is only for God because he is the one capable of commanding. But Satan whispers, you either listen to him or you don't. 170, and we will conclude with this. It says, and when it is said to them, follow what God has revealed, they say, rather, we follow what we found our fathers doing, even though their fathers understood nothing and were not guided. The reason for the revelation of this verse is that there was a group. When the prophet invited a group of Muslims from the Jews to Islam, their response was, no, we will not follow. We will follow what we found our fathers doing. So the Quran responded to the Jews and placed it in the verse, which is, and when it is said to them, follow. What did they say then? Rather, we follow what we found our fathers doing. Okay, and then there is a response from the Quran saying, even if their fathers, meaning in our language, in the language of our time, okay, what if their fathers knew nothing, understood nothing, and were not guided? So, the truth here, this is mentioned in Ibn Kathir in the third line of the interpretation of the 70th verse. The truth that caught my attention here is, and when it is said to them, okay, it is said in the passive voice, while the one who said it to them is known, and that is the Prophet Muhammad. So why use the passive voice when the subject is known? That was the point. In any case, I actually want to dedicate the last 5 minutes of each video to respond to questions and things like that happening on the channel. So, please allow me 3 to 4 minutes. I will provide comprehensive and inclusive responses to your comments. Honestly, many people say you shouldn't talk about the Quran unless you are knowledgeable in the Arabic language. Ladies and gentlemen, the Arabic language has no relation to the Quran. Why? I'll tell you why. Because the Arabic language is a human creation. What does human creation mean? It means that Arab people like Abu al-Aswad al-Duali, Al-Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, Sibawayh, Ibn Malik, and others, they created the Arabic language through human, intellectual creativity based on the environment they lived in. So, even assuming they derived it from the Quran, they still extracted it with their human intellect, and there may be errors, and there may be correctness. The rules of the Arabic language were not revealed in a verse for us to believe in them and defend them with such certainty. It is not appropriate to apply human creativity to what is sacred, because if the human is applied to the sacred, it would become a human book, which would lead us into another very big problem. The words of the Quran are sacred, and human words or human rules do not apply to the sacred at all. For example, in the Arabic language, when we talk about a male, we use he, and when we talk about a female, we use she. So when God says, for example, there is no deity except him, the ever-living, the sustainer, what do we say here? Is God male? God is neither male nor female, and this is a well-known matter. It's not appropriate to apply what is human to what is sacred. We just need to be rational and calm things down a bit, because by doing this, you're the one saying, not me, that the Quran is a human book. Why? Because it simply follows human rules, and this is not true at all. Also, there's another issue. There are non-Arabic words in the Quran, like Syriac words and others, such as Hawr al-Ain and more. I can list them for you. So, how are you going to apply Arabic language rules to something that is not Arabic? Can we apply Arabic language rules to the English language? You can't. You can't apply language rules to words from other languages. I honestly don't know, but there's definitely a big interest behind this. Islamic religious scholars have created a profession and specialization for themselves, complicating the matter for people. That's the process. You have to surround the Arabic language with something that is not its own, really. I will talk about this topic in other episodes, the story of the Arabic language and the Quran, or after the end of Surah Al-Baqarah. Dedicate a full episode to the story of the Arabic language and the Quran because the Quran itself was not compiled until 12 years after the Prophet's death. Where was the Arabic language? And you know, the Arabs, and I can show you the documents, put them in a video for you. I mean, what did the Quran look like? The Quran was not dotted, not vowelized, and not organized. They are the ones who numbered it, vowelized it, and dotted it. So, this is a very vast topic, and I might dedicate a separate episode to it. The second point is that some people invite me to debate, saying, come out and debate me, talk to me because you are an ignorant person. Very well, and it's known that the entire religion is based on the unseen. No one knows the unseen except God, so this is understood. I am ignorant, and you are more ignorant, no problem. No one has a definitive interpretation of the Quran. Neither God explained it, nor did the Prophet, nor the caliphs, nor the followers. By the way, anyway, our foundations are different, sir. You are a person who worships the letter, you worship the word, you worship the text. However, I follow the spirit and the meaning. What does that mean? I'll give you an example. Omar ibn al-Khattab suspended the punishment for theft during the year of famine. The text is clear. The text does not exempt the case of famine. As for the thief, the male and the female amputate their hands. This is a general, straightforward verse. Omar suspended the application of the Quran to achieve God's objectives. What are God's objectives? To eliminate injustice against humans naturally. To eliminate injustice against humans. It requires him, with his exceptional intellect, to suspend the application of the text. Imagine that achieving God's aims and objectives of eliminating injustice against people requires you to suspend the application of the text itself. What do you think? And without referring to, for example, a previous incident with the Prophet, or anything at all, purely through his individual effort. And who is Omar? I mean, who is he? We previously mentioned that Omar would say things that would be revealed as verses from the heavens, word for word. Omar's words would come down from the heavens as Quran. We presented this on the authority of a Salafi sheikh, whose name I honestly can't remember, but he is well known in Egypt. Anyway, when you come to me today and say that a male should have the share of 2 females, I would say no. Sorry. The female is exactly like the male in inheritance, testimony, education, and everything else. Pay attention, because the world has changed. To achieve God's aims and objectives, you must ensure equality between men and women in everything. Why? Because God's higher aims and objectives are equality and justice. Justice requires equality between the two, because the woman has also become like the man. Women work, women have been educated, and man, it is the woman who performs surgery on your brain to fix it, like a female doctor. I mean, if she were a neurosurgeon or something, removing a tumor from your brain to fix you, and then you come and tell her after recovering from the surgery that she can't testify in court or take half an inheritance. That's why the problem isn't with the information. The information is easy, by the way, and there is now a fluidity of information that can be accessed in various ways. With one click, you can reach any information and any meaning. The problem is that our stances are different. Don't come and tell me an eye for an eye or a female for a female. No, of course, it's a human for a human to reach God's higher purposes and goals, which are equality and justice. That's the story. Well, I don't want to go on too long. There are people who ask to chat with me, and I can't, because, my dear friends, you all mean a lot to me, but the whole story is that I'm a person who works. I can't have conversations with 10 to 12 people writing to me every day and leave my job, the job that I earn my living from, pay my rent from, and live from. I can't. Time doesn't allow it, and my health doesn't allow it. And I'll tell you, our perspectives are different. You might tell me what God says, but I have variables on the ground, and I have God's ultimate goals or final purposes to consider. However, the texts need a new perspective. That's the point. Well, the truth is, there are people, I'm not asking anyone to echo my words or follow me, nor do I claim wisdom or knowledge or anything at all. I'm just someone who created a channel to invite you to think outside the box, to think rationally, to use your mind because God appointed you as His representative, meaning you are God's representative on earth. So, do you want a text to follow blindly? Of course, the text is there, but there is also the mind. You must use your mind in interpreting the text, meaning what does contemplation mean, right? If you're just going to sit there bewildered, without thinking, it won't work. You have to think, you have to use your mind, and you have to be a person worthy of God's appointment of you as His representative on earth. The last point is about insults. I opened the page, and even Nabil used to respond, but doesn't anymore because he doesn't have time, and Hanzala used to respond, but doesn't anymore because he doesn't have time, and I don't have time, so we don't respond. The only thing I do is allow the insults meaning, because that's the Arab person, and that's their way, and we won't be able to change it except over time, maybe a year or two, and people will start thinking about the words, and start weighing them, and maybe they'll change their perspective or something. But insulting my family, I immediately put a ban on that, meaning you won't see any trace of it again. Insulting me, you will find your insults as they are, expressing yourself, your personality, your mindset, your psychological state, and everything. That doesn't concern me. I don't have a problem with it. I don't pay much attention to it. Thank you very much.